morning, and welcome to Tea and Conversation Live this morning. We're in our second season, and I am excited about all the things that are going on in our great city. I have a candidate on with me this morning, Miss Audette Bruce. She's one of the candidates that are running for Tampa City Council District 5. Good morning, Audette. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Great seeing you as well. I'm going to go right into the questions this morning. And this is one of the questions that I've asked a couple of the other candidates as well. What are your top three issues facing District 5, and how do you plan to address them?
Absolutely. So I think the top one on everybody's mind right now is affordable housing. And the
Mhm.
way I'm really looking at it is how do we keep people in their homes? It's got to be more than just building these giant apartment buildings that, just kind of cram people all together. But how do we ensure that we keep people in the homes that they've been passing down from generation to generation? Now, some of the conversations I've had with voters in the district have been that they want to see CRA funds more easily accessible. And I know that when the West Tampa CRA started in my area, one of the things was that it was meant to provide facade grants for homeowners to, keep up their homes, to
Mhm.
maintain and to improve the district as a whole. So, but what I've heard is that those haven't been so easy to obtain. So I feel
Mhm.
like that's something that city council can do to sort of ease that paperwork burden and also increase the communication with homeowners so that we can
Mhm.
find ways for them to stay in their homes, to improve their homes, and to continue passing down that legacy to generation after generation. The second issue that is top concern to me has to do with traffic. And
Mhm.
right in the middle of our district is this I-275, I-4 interchange that is a nightmare for anyone traveling through, even for work, not even just, the commuters, but just for those of us who live in the district, we're having more traffic in our city streets because people are trying to avoid that snarl. And that's obviously not good for our kids. It's not good for our families who, anybody who's out walking, you're at greater danger. And we already have a
Mhm.
higher incidence in the city of people being hit. So
Mhm.
I'd like to see some real options for folks. And that includes, beefing up hard. Even though it's a county facility, we do have the ability, and what we've seen city council do
Mhm.
is to improve the line one, route one. But I believe that there's other ways that we can do that. And we really want to see Hart becoming self-sufficient and a
Mhm.
real viable option for people to use. Plus, I still want to see Brightline come. I've heard that for years now. It feels like the impossible dream, but I'd love to
Mhm.
see Brightline actually come and connect Tampa with Orlando and Miami, and again get people off of our roads so that we can see some of this
Mhm.
congestion clear.
Mhm.
The third issue that is near and dear to me is seeing better relationships between law enforcement and community. So
Mhm.
I know that they have a plan and um, a deal of doing community policing. I really want to see
Mhm.
that come to fruition. I've seen a number of folks throughout our community, and maybe the cop car is stationed there, but you can't really see if anybody's in there, and it's almost like meant to be, I guess, a deterrent presence.
Mhm.
But you know, I've said this before, and maybe it's not hitting because it's an old reference, but the Mayberry system where the cops knew the people on the street,
Yeah.
where it was a community relationship.
Mhm.
It wasn't just, like, oh, be fearful of the cop, but it was also like, no, they know me. So they don't have to
Mhm.
chase me down because they know where I live. They know
Mhm.
my family, they know what I do for a living. That's the sort of relationship that I would really like to see here. And I know it's going to take money. I know it's going to take investment, but it's also going to take some trust building exercises. And that's, I think, where we bring in a lot of the nonprofits, the churches, the community centers to create these connections between law enforcement and our
Mhm.
families in the district.
Mhm. Thank you so much. And that leads me into the question of the homeless population in our community. How would you address um, our homeless population in our community? Also, possibly some of the mental health issues and providing resources for them.
I appreciate that you connected those two issues because you can't have one without the other. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in my church, where it's located in West Tampa, and right across the street from a parking lot that has been a melting pot of homeless, of sex trafficking, of drug deals, of all sorts of myriad of issues, social issues that we're dealing with. And what are some of the underlying issues that are plaguing that area?
Mm-hmm.
It really is mental health issues. It really is. It's more than just I ran out of money, but it's a continuous making of poor choices to sustain a habit, to you know, delve into like the darker parts of life, unfortunately. So,
Mm-hmm.
in the church setting, what we've been doing is we've provided um, community, we've provided prayer, we've provided relationship,
Mm-hmm.
in addition to food and like care packages when we have them on hand. But it has to be the connection of community.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be the connection of law enforcement and policy that really affects the community. I've seen some folks who have been taken from the street into apartment dwelling. And you know what? If they don't have the wraparound services to help them
Mm-hmm.
to know how to budget, how to clean your house, it doesn't work very well. I am incredibly interested in what they're calling, I believe, the Great Experiment over in St. Pete, where
Mm-hmm.
they took an apartment building and filled it with homeless families and folks. And for the
Mm-hmm.
past year, there's been a number of articles in the Tampa Bay Times about what's happening there. I find that fascinating, and I can't wait to see what the results are because it is sort of something that everybody's thought. Well, what if we just get them housing? Will that be enough?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it is. Homelessness
Mm-hmm.
is a bigger problem than just not having a house, but it's also about purpose. It's about mental health, and those are not going to be solved just by government alone. But it does take the entire community. So I believe it's pulling together the mental health resources, the metropolitan ministries of the world, the churches on the corner, the
Mm-hmm.
Baycares or the different mental health providers in our area to pull together to find real solutions. And I appreciate even that the cops have created, the homeless liaisons to try and to bring social services into those areas. But I
Mm-hmm.
do believe that it's got to be more. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
just on the backs of the cops to do it. It's not just on the backs of government to do it, but it really does it takes all of us.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that answer. If you're just joining me, I'm on live, Tea and Conversation Live with Ardette Bruce. She's a candidate for Tampa City Council District 5. You know, Ardette, we just had last year two storms back to back, and we had throughout the city issues with flooding. And I'm not sure how quickly we are addressing the issue or getting the information out. And you know, we're in hurricane season right now. How would you address the flooding issues, stormwater infrastructure issues, and the low-lying areas in our throughout our district? Because one thing I do know that some of the areas was not flood areas, but we still had issues.
Right. Right. And I think that was probably the most surprising for a lot of folks. I
Mm-hmm.
had the opportunity after the floods last year to talk with homeowners who experienced
Mm-hmm.
floods, and they were not in flood areas whatsoever. And
Mm-hmm.
common problems that they were experiencing was inability to get permits. I talked to
Mm-hmm.
someone else just this past weekend, and I was asking him because he lived right on the water and he was flooded. And I said, "Well, how is it that you were able to rebuild? Because his house is already back to normal." And he said, "You know
Mm-hmm.
what? We had put in the claim immediately. So he had the wherewithal, he had the knowledge, he had the communication skills to be able to get that claim in immediately. And he said he didn't have any problem with permits. And I'm saying, well, why is that? He said, well, because I started at the very beginning. But if you
Mm-hmm.
waited a couple of days, then you're in the bell curve where there's just so much demand and not
Mm-hmm.
enough trained and available
Mm-hmm.
inspectors or permit personnel. So I
Mm-hmm.
think I think there is some consideration in terms of our capacity as a city. are we really prepared, in terms of personnel to handle the glut when it happens? And I think for years we were all in like, oh, it's not going to hit Tampa. We've
Mhm.
skated by for so many.
Yeah.
This isn't going to be our year. And then
Hmm.
back to back hurricanes, man, it was unexpected. The other thing that I am concerned about that I know City Council has been talking about is um, taking some of the areas that were hard hit by the hurricanes and making
Hmm.
them into higher density areas, which seems strange. That's putting it nicely, strange to me. Like, if you know that this area is going to flood out, why would you put, especially affordable housing, why would you put people who may not have the means to get out and get safe into places that you know are going to flood? We're
Hmm.
creating a problem in our zoning. So I think that's the other thing to look at is what are our zoning laws that are going to affect, especially our poorer neighborhoods in those
Hmm.
areas where there is flooding prevalent. I think all of us are seeing way too much flooding still, and I know we've been hearing about it for years. Like, oh, they're working on it, and I just got a notice the other day that they're about to start working in my neighborhood on digging out and creating better sewer lines and things. So I know the city has been working on it,
Hmm.
but so far it just doesn't seem to be working very well or working
Hmm.
fast enough for all of us. And that could also be
Hmm.
because of the density that we're dealing with and the number of
Hmm.
construction projects that are ongoing in District 5. So,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
mean, builders have to be held responsible for their sites and what they're allowing down the storm drains.
Hmm.
I mean, it's a complex problem, obviously, and I think there's a number of ways that we can address it. But as city council, that's our job, right? To
Hmm.
look at it and to make
Absolutely.
the hard decisions. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely. Let me ask, uh, do you support increasing funding for the parks and the rec centers and some of the libraries throughout our district?
I actually do. My child, actually, both of my children were recipients of, I guess that's not the right word, but were participants and were
Hmm.
able to be part of the city park system, whether through the summer camps or through after school care. And
Hmm.
the relationships that we still have as a result of
Hmm.
those connections are invaluable. I am still a huge proponent, especially for families
Hmm.
that are struggling in the summers, because, the multi-thousand-dollar camps, that's just not a reality for a lot of us who are
Hmm.
working parents and trying to figure out what are we going to do with our kids in the summer. So ensuring that we have these camps available is
Hmm.
critical. And the other ones I love have been the youth camps, the ones that are specifically designed to meet the needs
Hmm.
of our young men and young women who are growing up. They've sort of aged out of the younger camps, but they need something to do. And so I
Hmm.
used to send my son over to Ray Park. And he would go and he would lift weights or he would watch movies or play video games, and it would get him out of the house and it would get him into a structured environment that was better for him. It was better for his mental health. It was better for his choice making, and I so appreciated that. But also, we still use the libraries. We still use these parks and these incredible assets in our neighborhoods. And if
Hmm.
they're not well kept, and I was at MLK Center this past weekend, and that's one of the
Hmm.
places where I used to send my children, and it's not well
Hmm.
kept. I mean, you
Hmm.
could see the places where the roof needs repair, where it's just not to the standard. I mean,
Hmm.
let's be honest, you wouldn't see that in certain areas of South Tampa. You just wouldn't.
Absolutely not. That's why we definitely need someone to represent us in District 5 that knows those different parks, that go around to those different parks. Even if you had the meetings at those parks, if you had your town hall at those parks, then you have a firsthand visual of the parks and possibly, maybe, want to do something to improve the parks. Thank you so much for that answer. I am Candy Lowe, the host of Tea and Conversation Live. I'm on with Audette Bruce. She's a candidate for Tampa City Council District 5. Next question, Audette. How would you invest in programs for the youth, especially in underserved communities?
Well, I think as we were just speaking about, the parks are an
Mhm.
incredible opportunity that we have, and I advocate using those community resources and investing in those for sure. The other thing is I am a big proponent of public-private partnerships. I
Mm-hmm.
know that government is not going to be the best provider of services. It's going to be the biggest provider of services, most
Mm-hmm.
likely, but it's not necessarily the best. We don't have the specialized skills that some of our nonprofits do. And so if we can find the best of the best and work with them, why wouldn't we? Especially those that know the neighborhoods better than a city
Mm-hmm.
worker, just trying to figure it out from their desk. Being able to talk to folks who are in the neighborhoods. And so if that means, working with the local churches, working with the local community centers,
Mm-hmm.
even some of our, we have some really creative private sector initiatives even in our communities that are doing some incredible work for children and families. And if we were able to find a way to supplement or subsidize families being able to get access to that. We need opportunities for our children. In my community in particular, one of the things that I'm noticing is that there's a lack of young men. They're not
Mm-hmm.
graduating. And after 18, they're kind of missing. And I was talking to my son because he had come back from being away for the summer, and I
Mm-hmm.
said, "Where are all of your friends?" He's like, "I don't know, Mom. They're gone." And I said, "Well, where?" He's like, "Well,
Mm-hmm.
juvie or prison, or some have gone to school, but very few. The graduation rate, especially in West Tampa, is ridiculously low, and the majority that do graduate, they're the girls, and God bless. But our young men, as a mom of two boys at 19 and 16, it's on my heart that our young men need purpose and they need guidance. They need mentorship. And so the more that we can provide that, I know that the state a couple of years ago was investing money in dads and in creating connections and support
Mm-hmm.
processes and organizations that would help dad, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
it's connecting with state and local resources to really promote that, because it's not going to happen just because, somebody, in government says, "Oh, we need to do this." No, we actually have to get people on the ground, boots on the ground, who can invest in our children, who can invest in our youth so that we have a real future in District 5 for these young men and young women.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that answer. Um, let's see. How will you ensure transparency and accountability in your role as our city council woman if you win?
I think as someone who has been the district aide or the legislative aide, I know what it's like when people call and they're mad and they have things to say and they want to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand the value in in listening and really hearing what people have
Mm-hmm.
to say, what's really under, maybe there's the loud problem, but there's the unspoken issue that they don't feel heard. They don't trust the people in power. They feel like they're being abused or used. So there is a need for better communication, and so that's
Mm-hmm.
something that I'm committed to. I
Mm-hmm.
I know it's not always comfortable to do these town halls, but it's
Mm-hmm.
important. It's important to listen. It's important to be heard,
Mm-hmm.
for the community members, and also to have a real interchange and exchange between
Mm-hmm.
the elected and the public, so that it does breed trust. It does breed a sense of um, I guess just well-being, that no, this is someone who really takes the time to listen and to care. We may not agree, but we can at least exchange ideas and not shut each other down out of fear
Mm-hmm.
or lack of trust.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that answer. Ardette Bruce, candidate for Tampa City Council, District 5. Next question. What is your plan to stay connected with the constituents after the election? That's win or lose.
I've been giving that a lot of thought. And
Mhm.
winning is a little bit easier in some ways, right?
Mhm.
But what has been hitting me is that it doesn't matter. Like, this is my community, and how would I
Mhm.
step down and not be a part of what's going on here?
Mhm.
It, it matters. It matters to me. It matters to my family. It matters to my friends and family that live here and value this place. So I have I have committed to continuing on. I've been with my job has taken me out, and unfortunately, the one day that I'm traveling is the one day that the our West Tampa CRA meets on the regular. So I'm like, all right, well,
Mhm.
something's got to change, because that was something that I was very committed to, is going to those meetings for a number of years to
Mhm.
to hear what was going on and to see, what's really transforming in our neighborhood. And I'll be honest, I understand government after working in it for a long time. I know that it's slow, but good God, it's so slow. And it needs amplification of our voices to speed it up. And so I know that it has to be more than through the CRAs. It has to be through city council. It has to be through letters and campaigns toward the mayor's office. So,
Mhm.
I mean, maybe this is creating a rabble rouser. I don't know. But,
Mm.
you know, if we
Yeah.
don't get up and start speaking, then we're going to continue this same sad trajectory of, well, nobody's listening to us. Well, that's because we're not speaking,
Mhm.
or we're not speaking to
Mhm.
the right people. And one thing I've learned over my time in politics is I know how to speak to power, and I know
Mhm.
how to be heard, and I know how to be respectful in the midst of it. So
Mhm.
whether I win or lose, I have to continue using that to
Mhm.
advocate, to get things done. And that's speaking not only to those in political power, but even our private sector, and ensuring that as they're coming in, they're not just extracting all of the good out of District 5, but they're investing here and they understand the
Mhm.
value of what they're putting into this place.
Mhm. Absolutely. And how do you plan to involve the residents in major decisions that impact their neighborhoods?
I highly support and endorse town halls in our
Mhm.
neighborhood, and seeing those happen on the regular, because, as like I said, even though they can be painful sometimes to have those
Mhm.
hard conversations, they're so important. And
Mhm.
you know, I know that social media and email are really standard practice anymore. But even still, I don't know about you, but I get tons of emails that I don't read every day. So
Mhm.
there has to be, right? There has to be the physical, the human connection beyond just the, putting it out an email blast, or putting it on a website somewhere. Uh,
Mhm.
so I think it's finding all of the different ways to connect, and I appreciated so much visiting you guys at Teen Conversation a couple of weeks ago,
Mhm.
because it was such a vibrant community of folks who
Mhm.
really care about the community and they want to see things change. So it's
Mhm.
finding and investing in groups like yours to have those hard conversations and increase transparency and hopefully increase trust in the public sector, because that's unfortunately created a lot of problems in our society right now where nobody trusts one another.
Mhm. Mhm. And thank you so much for bringing up tea and conversation, Audette. If you become um, Tampa City Councilwoman, you're welcome to join us every second or fourth Saturday of the month, and just come back and give us updates. Everyone in the
Thank
room is interested in our city. And we also have tea and conversation this Saturday at Al's Finger Looking Good Soul Food, and you're welcome to come and join us as well. You're listening
thank
to
you.
Tea and Conversation live here on all of our social media platforms. I'm on with Audette Bruce. She's a candidate for Tampa City Council District 5. And last question, and it is a question that I want you to share with us. Why are you the right person to represent District 5?
There are, as you know, a ton
Mm-hmm.
of us on this ballot. And I look and I see some really well qualified folks. And so I've had to ask myself that question. And what I keep coming back to is I actually have an incredible resume, but more than that, I have the passion and the belief in District 5 and its value and its value proposition going forward, that we have something special here that needs to be amplified. It needs to be accelerated because it's not, we're not a, I say this delicately, we're not a poor district. We're not a, oh, poor them. No, no, no. Actually, this is a vibrant, powerful district that has an incredible group of people who are invested here. I haven't seen this in every community I've lived in, and I've lived in a number, not just here in Tampa, but outside of outside of Florida. And I keep seeing people who, I mean, they would blood, sweat, and tears for this community. There is, and part of it has to do with the generational presence here. That people who've lived here for generations and they want to continue that generational legacy. That is, it's more than just a community. It's really become a like a family. And
Mm-hmm.
I understand family. I understand the value of promoting and creating development solutions
Mm-hmm.
for our community. That's my background. I worked in the UN for about 9 years, working and finding solutions from around the developing countries and sharing them widely because I know that there are development solutions that can be transferred. It doesn't all have to be a one way or the highway
Mm-hmm.
solution. We can find things that work here and that can work across our community that are specific and direct to our people. So this idea that, well, you know, we've got to make ourselves into South Tampa or we've got to make ourselves into New Tampa or anything like that. No, we have an incredible flavor and personality within this district in each of these little enclaves of communities. And our job is actually to amplify the good in that and to drive out the bad and to allow just the beauty and the dignity of this area to shine.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my heart, that's my passion, and I've got the backpack of experience to make that a reality. That's what I bring.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that, Ardette. Ardette is one of the candidates that are running for Tampa City Council District 5. Ardette, how long have you been in District 5? Lived in District 5?
So I started working here in 2015, so about 10 years
Okay.
ago. And then I moved into the area and I've lived here ever since 20 our church moved over here in 2017 and then I moved over in 2018.
Okay.
So about 7 years living here, although
Mm-hmm.
my math is usually pretty terrible. So um, apologies for that. But you know, ever since we got here, we were hip deep. We're like, here we go. This is it. You know, our church is at the corner of Union and Howard. So we're
Mm-hmm.
right in the middle of Old West Tampa. And we have been, my family, we've been personally engaged where we're meeting the community on the regular. We're going out and we are ministering on the regular to, you know, to bring hope, to change things, even from changing a park that used to be a den for sex trafficking and drug deals, Fremont Linear Park. I've been personally advocating for that with the city for years to see something happen. And, you know, as a church, we took over that park a number of times. And as a result, we're seeing things happening. We're seeing things, some of the bad stuff moving out and children coming back into the park. That's the kind of legacy that I want to leave here in District 5.
Thank you, and thank you so much for that answer, Ardette. Ardette is our one of our candidates that's running for Tampa City Council District 5, and I'm so happy to have her on with me this morning. If you have any last comments that you would like to add, Ardette.
I just thank you so much for hosting. I thank you for your commitment to our community and to making it a better place. I thank you for creating open doors for all of the candidates. I know with 14 of us, it's a big job for anyone to do, and I thank you for that. But I thank you for giving us a chance to, to present a vision of what District 5 can look like, and allowing us to share it with the voters so they can make the most informed decision.
Thank you for those comments as well. Thank you everyone for joining in, listening to myself and Ardette Bruce. She's candidate for Tampa City Council District 5. And you can learn a lot more about Ardette at ardettefortampa.com. Her website is right here. Make sure you go on it and see what she's about. I'm sure that if you join her on any of her social media pages, she'll respond back. She responded back to me. So make sure that you join her campaign, volunteer if you like, and get involved in with our community. Ardette, would you like to give when the dates of the election is?
Absolutely. So September 9th is actual election day, but early voting is available from September 4th through the 7th. So, and remember, election day is on a Tuesday, so we always have to, get motivated and get going. But find your place now. Go to the Supervisor of Elections website. I believe it's Vote Hillsborough,
Mm-hmm.
and check out where you're registered to vote, and even where the early voting locations are. So I know
Mm-hmm.
my early location is over at the West Tampa Library, so I'll be there probably on the 4th just to get it done.
Awesome. And I definitely encourage early voting. Don't wait to the day of the election. We never know what may happen on the day of election. You may get sick or anything could happen.
Mhm.
So you want to make sure that you try real hard to get out and vote early. Again, I want to thank you, Ardette Bruce, candidate for Tampa City Council, for joining me this morning on Tea and Conversation Live. And I look forward to seeing you out on the campaign trail all the way to early early voting day on September 4th through the 7th. And of course, on election day at one of those polls out and about, sign waving on September 9th. Have a great day, and I'll chat with you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.